I want to thank Nate for putting on a conference. And some of you probably have to get home and milk cows. And I'm right there. I used to be there, right there with you. You know, you always have to leave the party a little bit early. You guys have really stuck through a lot. And maybe we tried to squeeze too much in one day. I will tell you that the content that you are hearing today, you could pay a lot of money for attending a conference. Not free admission, not a farm show. I'm talking a conference. For you agronomists in the room, we should be passing a clipboard right now because you should take credit for this, for your CCA. So if you have to leave, it's okay. You won't offend me. I don't have a curfew tonight. I can stay here as long as you'd like. But this has been a long day, and I don't blame you if you need to get up and go, just go quietly. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you my experiences, and there's stories woven into all of this. I'm not any smarter than any person that stood up here today. In fact, I don't like standing on stage. Last time I stood on stage, I think I was a little kid and I was in dance, so don't laugh. Okay, but stages are not my thing. I didn't go look for public speaking either. You know, my mom was a forensics coach. I never took forensics. She was an English teacher. But here I am. And I think we're all connected through these stories. A little bit about my background. My last name is Chitwood. Does anybody know anybody named Chitwood? See, we're all related because I can never find my cousins anywhere. And sometimes I'm funny, so you can kind of at least chuckle a little bit with me. So, quality liquid feeds. I didn't go looking for this career. It kind of found me. My background's in animal science. I was raised on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. I promised I wouldn't do any Viking Packer jokes today. And I thought Steve was a nice addition because if you notice, he has purple shirts, and he would fit right in amongst a lot of you good hardcore Viking fans. So you guys never smile when I bring up the Vikings in the pack, except Kurt. Okay, so quality liquid feeds. Who's here heard of them? Do you feed cows QLF? Where's the feed rep? We got to talk to some of these people. Quality liquid feeds has been around for a couple generations. Corey Berg's dad, Kenny, started it even 20 years prior to that in 1977. I know that year really well because I was established the same year. That shows how old I am. And he'd been in the liquid feed business for a long time. And he was thinking he was going to get a promotion, but he was let go because he was making too much money even though he was paying his own way and it was 100% commission. The owner today, the son, tells that story remarkably, and he's told it 1,000 times. What's really unique about this company is it has had a generational tie to the Louisiana sugarcane growers. And why do you guys think that's so cool? Because it is. We have a source of cane molasses. We influence a lot of livestock, but we ventured into the agronomy market, and I will proudly stand up here and say that we are a fertilizer manufacturer. I think that this conference has been good because we've opened your eyes to say, hey, they are charging too much for fertilizer. How do we get more efficient with it? How do we put those dollars back in our pockets? But we make fertilizer, just like we make feed. In Louisiana, we are tied to the Louisiana sugarcane growers for generations. Of 11 sugar mills left in production today, we soak up 10 of 11 of those sugar mills. We see this as a great growth opportunity for our company, and we're all set up to do it. So literally, our liquid carbon-based fertilizer starts here in the state of Louisiana. As a company, we have grown leaps and bounds. The agronomy division has averaged over 30% growth in the last 5 years. We have production sites, and by the way, when I make things animate, oh, Steve, your clicker goes that way, okay. I would not be standing here today if it weren't for the truck drivers that drive those trucks. That's how the country was built. That's how our company was built. That's how we got it to you. Please pat them on the back. And if anybody's looking for a job, we are looking for good people to drive our trucks. This is not getting any easier. And I can tell you the limitation for growth right now is logistics. Our products are in big demand, and we need your help getting to your farms. I encourage on-farm storage. I encourage more planning. We incentivize that. But this is the future that agriculture is going, more independence at your local levels. So truck drivers were a big part of our growth. This is a big thank you. Nate's only been with us in his 3rd season, right? 4th season, okay.
I tested it for 2 and then really a 3rd season growing.
You know, and I started off as a dealer myself, and I wasn't actually looking for this job, but just like this morning, I sat in a country kitchen, and someone said, hey, you really believe this product called Boost? I was a dealer. And I saw the connection between molasses and putting it with fertilizer. So this is enough replicated data right here to let you know that you're not the only one that's doing this. The adoption rate and the retention rate is really impressive. As long as we educate you on how to handle our products, and I like that there's a pilot sitting here, right? He's successfully flown it through his plane. I mean, if we teach you how to handle the products and set the right expectation, you can get through this scariness thing of how does molasses handle. So, one thing I'm really proud of is I work for the size company that I work for, as a percentage, invests a huge amount of money on data. Data-driven research, independent trials. These are not all stories. This is data. I can't even present everything we've done in the last 10 years. And what's kind of fun across the street from the office is we have a supper club that we retrofitted into a state-of-the-art lab. We put in a growth chamber, a greenhouse, a tank farm. And so I'm going to tell you that we're committed to research. This is where we practice and play before we go to the big stage, which is on-farm replicated research. So here's 5 reasons why you're going to sit here and stay with me. Oh, I didn't get that. I just transitioned around one. Back up. Molasses 101. You guys ever see those QR codes? I'm going to go back to my marketing person. I'm going to put a QR code up here because this is something we authored and put out there to try to educate people on truth. QLF as a company moves over 1.25 million tons of formulated feed every year. You saw how small our agronomy division is, right? We're 30,000 ton of that 1 million+ ton. We orchestrate an amazing movement and migration of molasses every year. Even with rivers that are running low and rails that are going on strikes, this company moves a mountain of molasses and formulated feed every year. So we put out this article called Molasses 101. I mean, there's a little inside joke. Just so you know, you're getting advice from a guy that went to the University of Wisconsin, double majored in animal science and journalism, and I took agronomy 101. That's the level I came out of there with. Some of you are thinking that's not very funny, but I think it's kind of funny because I had no preconceived notions, no bad habits. I think today they're still not teaching enough of what you heard today. This isn't even being covered in our academia world. So if we had a QR code right now, and we're going to get one up there someday, get a copy of this from Nate. Right? Nate's got a team over there that he put a nice event on today. I want everybody to read this because you will be more educated and armed for everybody that's coming out here and telling you a carbon story, carbon this, carbon that. It is really confusing sitting where you're sitting. It took me a long time to kind of really process and figure out what are they talking about when they say carbon. Make no mistake, Quality Liquid Feeds is one of the biggest carbohydrate companies on the continent. We're all about energy. That's what we do to help your cows digest and make use of all the nutrients we feed to them day in, day out. So this Molasses 101, get copies of it and read it. You will see value and boost once you're done reading this. And it's just the nice to know and the need to know. It's probably over the top. Most agronomy people don't even really recognize some of these values. So to make it really simple for you too, sugar is a carbon. It is a carbohydrate source. It is rocket fuel. The definition of the word sucrose is plant sugar. In fact, every time sucrose is breaking apart and putting back together, there's energy released. This is how plants prefer to make their sugar. This is how they transport it and store it, and hopefully store their calories to make energy and yield for you. It also is a thing that is exudated through the roots. Sugarcane molasses has a really nice, raw, undegraded, intact source of sucrose, plant sugar. And I could have saved just 2 minutes of my presentation if I just said what my friend Alan said years ago, 10 years ago. We're sitting here trying to really overthink this thing. He goes, it's how plants do sugar. Now, funny story, I'm at a conference, Commodity Classic. Somebody comes to the booth. He says, what's the size of your sugar? How do I answer that? You see, because the definition of high bricks is dissolved solids. It is microscopic. It is how plants do sugar. It is so small, it's half the size of your DNA. So the sugar that's in those products is in solution. It is dissolved solids. So let's not make this hard. It's how plants do sugar. Why is molasses brown? I know you probably didn't ask that question, so now I'm making you think about it. This has nothing to do with the sugar part. This probably has everything to do with why this is such a tricky material to work with. But see, bugs don't want to just have one ingredient to eat. This is kind of what makes molasses, sugarcane molasses, the gold standard in feeding biology, because it is loaded with minerals. This is literally, as a farmer said from the crowd many years ago, Oh, I get it. That's the blood of the plant. And then there's one little, caveat to like, well, what else is in there, besides fertilizers and unique chemistry? We rarely spend a lot of time talking about all the features and benefits of the materials that come from sugarcane molasses. But we do use more food source to enhance biological function. Imagine some yeast showing up at a factory and fed a specific diet. What comes out the back end of that factory is a specific metabolite. And we don't spend a lot of time talking about this. But I'll quote the friends of ours at Alltech Crop Science, which is also one of the largest fermentation yeast companies in the business. They have a crop science division. They said, yeast is a good food source. It's rich with nutrients. In fact, it's pure protein, pure amino acid. So there's 3 components to our products. Food sources, sucrose, plant sugar, plant blood, molasses, all those secondary benefits, all those things you saw on that list. And then we add unique chemistry. I haven't shown this book in my short career, which I've been doing this now for 12 years. There's a DIFCO manual that's 700 pages long. And if Christina was here, she would say, oh yeah, I have a copy of that. Because you know what they use this for? They use this to grow biology. You can look up a recipe and say, I want to grow a bug. It's in that manual. What's unique is a lot of the materials that are in those products not only help feed plants, but they're friendly to biology. One thing I'll touch on down there at the end when I get into our starter is the monopotassium phosphate. For those of you that have drank a Florida Gator hydration drink, known as Gatorade, you actually consumed a food-grade and high-quality orthophosphate fertilizer, monopotassium phosphate. It also feeds biology. So to make a good fertilizer, you really need to start with a balance of nutrients. And I heard today that it doesn't matter how much is in your soil, it's got to be exchangeable, right? And the only way you can really get those exchangeable is you need to somehow hold them in play longer and enhance the nutrient availability of them. And if you haven't caught on yet, one of the things that's really unlocked the potential for getting more nutrient use efficiency on your farm is working with biology. The best part about my job today, and Shannon and Kurt, I'm sorry I should introduce you guys at the beginning. Kurt they actually kind of share Nate's territory, northern Minnesota and southern Minnesota. They are regional sales agronomists for QLF agronomy. What's easy for them today, and much easier for me today, thanks to your adoption rate, you have proven that these products are versatile, cost-effective, and have a return on investment. Because even though we can improve soil health and prove it through this presentation and all the data we have to support it, at the end of the day, you got to be able to pay your bills. And the only way you're going to do that is to be able to supplement something to make you more efficient. You got to make profit. So that's what makes this job easier. So if I haven't asked enough questions, or you haven't asked enough questions, I'm going to ask them for you. This is another tool I like to hand out to introduce who is talking to you. Who is QLF? What is this company? And once you read the FAQ sheet, you'll understand it's like, why wouldn't they be in the fertilizer business? We're set up to do it. So we coined the phrase, and we trademarked it LCBF. That stands for liquid carbon-based fertilizer. We will never produce a fertilizer that isn't brown and sweet. That is our niche. That is who we are. This is the part where I was talking about 5 reasons you're going to keep sitting there and help me get through this presentation. This is number 1. Notice I said yield potential, because there's a lot of potential there. We're finding out that other people are getting more with less, or when you put more on, people are getting more back. It's all about more yield potential. Nitrogen use efficiency. This is one that's probably going to be regulated someday. And I hope they just say, you know what, you're allowed only so much nitrogen in this county. Or would they say, you know what, you don't want to penalize the guy who's doing a good job of maybe a half a pound purchase per bushel removed. You know, there's some corn warriors out there that get 400 bushel with 180 pounds of applied nitrogen. So that's nitrogen use efficiency. And there's a lot of this is hinging on your profitability, is that one right there. Better starts. Something I learned on the job is that no plant likes to come from behind and finish first. If you have a field like that on your farm, it was a really bad field and a bad year. So better starts is everything. I'm going to talk on that. Foliar feeding. That's basically touching a leaf. In some of our trials, we were broadcast, and some hit the soil, and some hit the leaf. And you'll hear a lot of jokes, or what my colleagues call Chitwoodisms. I call soilier feeding both leaf and soil. The data is that if you put 2 gallons of coverage, he gets it, leaf or soil. Quality forage, or quality liquid feeds. Why not quality forage? What's another word for quality forage? I don't grow forage. Well, yeah, you do. You grow forage, you just don't feed it to a cow, at least the fiber part. Another word for quality forage is plant health. It's really that simple. If you got healthier plants, they're going to test better. So we have a product guide, and I don't know if there's enough at each table, but if you have to duck out, make sure you take that one home. It is the owner-operator manual of our products. It has everything in it. You can go tell your brother that didn't make it, or your business partner, and say, hey, this is why we got to look into this stuff. It's all right there, everything I'm talking about. So here's another thing. They're recording this presentation, and I hate hearing myself talk. I know you think I do, but I don't, okay? But you're not going to have time to watch all these videos. There are people that are saying the same things we're saying, like Wheat Pete. You ever heard of that Twitter handle? Peter Johnson from realagriculture.com. Nobody's paying attention to the wheat growers in Canada. So watch this video. Peter Johnson says process. I don't think in Minnesota we say process still, don't we here? Here's the deal. 80% of the organic matter, according to his science and his research, and colleagues that are scientists like him, are made up of little dead bug bodies. Did we hear a lot about organic matter and WEOC today? Well, guess what? The little microbial protein that's floating around in that soil, it's just a lot of dead bugs. And that's a good problem to have. So I encourage you to watch this video. It's entertaining and it's accurate. And not because we're a quality liquid feed company, you just say, I'm just going to keep coming at these cow analogies for you. This was actually a slide created by Don Schriefer, and I'll reference him in a little bit. Why wouldn't we be in the fertilizer game? You see, we've been doing WEON and WEOC in these diets. We balance nitrogen to carbon or protein to energy. That's what dairy nutritionists do. That's what Kurt Lahr knows how to do to get those cattle faster. But instead of looking at the residue or feedstuffs you're working with, this is what we do in the soil. And you guys that are ruminant nutritionists and agronomists, you need to take a class in ecology because you cannot violate the principles of your soil stomach or your cow stomach. It's just going to be a profit taker. So I'm just going to stimulate some biology there and keep moving on. The take-home message is basically this. Mother Nature knows best. The best form to put your biology into play and keep it there longer is to go through these organic processes. So you can get a copy of this and you can reread through it and you can watch the video if it sounds good. But I'm going to keep moving on here, okay? Mineralization. Nate told me, I want you to key in on mineralization. Well, here's my aha moment. Many years ago, a farmer's son was out cultivating corn, and he forgot to turn his pump on. And he's an organic farmer, and I don't know why he would have sweeps with totally tubular welded on the bottom of those shovels. What does an organic farm side dress? That's a side dress toolbar in Iowa. He said he got the great idea. He said, let's put down a high sugar product. Truth be known, this farmer did not get his TerraFed through his planter. And this is an accident because he forgot to turn it on a few rounds. Now let's pretend you're taking a class. I'm the professor. You get your pencils out, write your answers. Tell me what happened. The last days of June, you're cultivating corn. It can't be any taller than this because you're not getting through with your cultivator, right? Labor Day rolls around and there's this yellow band across your field and your neighbors are pointing at it. Tell me what happened. It's kind of weird, isn't it? It's all about mineralization and timing. We triggered a response. It's like the priming effect, right? And this is fun. When you guys do this kind of work for marketing, thank you. We line up a 1/1000th of a check prettiest to ugliest. You know, there's 28,000 ears there. What do you think the ugly ones are? They're the ones that fell behind. And it started back in June. So you tell me what happened there. Well, let's put some fuel in there. Nothing grows on nothing, let's be honest. There's got to be some groceries and some minerals, right? So any organic farmers in the room today? Do you not want to share? No volunteers? Well, the average consumption rate of poultry litter, if you can get an ample supply of it, and it's not priced too expensive, I'm going to guarantee a 4-ton works better than 2-ton. And if we do mineralization charts, I'll come back to that. I'm driving Steve's clicker and it's not working out for me. If you look at the credits in that poultry litter, the textbook says take half of half of half of half. What that means is you can't take all full credits on that feed test that you turned that litter in for. But we know that corn grows on some pounds of nitrogen from somewhere, right? Pretty impressive. So let me keep moving here. We did do a collaborative research project, and we did get these companies to partner in on. And I guess what makes this really unique and special is it wasn't just me standing up here saying that we're the best, which you're going to get a lot of that, okay? It's just the facts. We do what we say we do. But we partner with all these companies. There was a high phos product, a high nitrogen product, 2 biologicals that Steve really did a good job of differentiating, limited species versus broad spectrum. There was a starter and there was a side dress. And the typical organic farmer says, I don't really know how this would apply to me, but I'm going to show you what a big trial looks like. So when you show up on your trial, you want to see a lot of variability, especially when the design of your trial is 30 different treatments replicated 6 times. That is a patchwork quilt right there. That's a massive trial. We've camped out in this location with this researcher who's 30 years in the business, does a phenomenal job, and we have done a lot of meaningful research. This is actually the first investment we've made in organic trials. Most of you poor organic guys don't ever get like real data, you get stories. This is hardcore science. So let's go back to the beginning because starters is where we started. The core product is called TerraFit. It's the organic cousin to everything on that stage over there. Dr. Freeman and Dr. Carver were 2 ruminant nutritionists that came up with the biological soup recipe that's in all of our products. And when I was a dealer going to them and they were trying to pitch me, they said, man, there was more worms in the pails where we put it. What they didn't know is they were talking to a company and a person who said, yeah, I already kind of think that way. We know what you got. We want to do something with you. So that was the beginning. That was in 2010. Let's look at emergence on that organic trial. If you're somewhere between 65 and 85% emerge and you're still not out of the gate and you're 4 days into the life of that crop, in some places people will call that a weed. What's the importance of uniform emergence? It's everything to a start. And there was a separation there. So for the organic guys, this applies to you too. And going back at the price of that corn, it was $7 then. It's probably what now? 11 or 12 now. Doesn't really matter. I heard Bob saying about some guys making $400 an acre. I know a lot of guys are happy to make 50 or 100. But here's the take-home message. Of the 2 combinations here, we did different rates of TerraFed and CX1. In Walworth County, Wisconsin, the yield average reported in the USDA records is probably farmers, if they're being honest, is around 175 to 185 bushel. What's really cool about Whitewater, Wisconsin in Walworth County is we successfully grew 267 bushel corn. We applied 2 ton of litter, and if we had time to look at these soil tests and look at the source of manure that we put out there, no other fertility was purchased. So I'm showing you what's in the mineral test, and I'm showing you what's put out there, what I call fuel. You can't conceivably figure out how you got up over 225 bushel corn, right? It's really remarkable. So here's what the headline should read. Instead of calling it an organic trial, let's just say Walworth County farmer puts on 2 ton of chicken shit, puts down some kind of a sugar product with some other biological stuff, and he removes over 225, 270 bushel corn. You see, Nate wants me to talk about mineralization. The step between the start and the finish, out of the emergence and when it's rapidly growing, side dress, that's all about mineralization. We got more of those goodies back and got it to that crop. That was a 40 bushel swing. See, the conventional grower could take a play out of this book right here and adopt some of these principles. So fertilizer done right convinces the plant it doesn't live in a crappy soil test. Now, I'm not on Twitter, but this guy threw me out there one day, and boy, you guys came back hard on me and said, you're just trying to sell fertilizer. Farmer's Edge flies over fields. I think they're still doing it today. You can sell you satellite imagery. They can show you what's called NDVI. NDVI captures the photosynthetically active biomass. Basically, it's bouncing a signal back to you. So there's more green living stuff on this side versus that side. To the naked eye, you could not see this split in this wheat field in northern Minnesota. And thanks to this guy named Joe, who turned it off in the middle of a farm, we showed the value of a starter. What I see with good starter programs is from fence row to fence row across all those soil types, I see uniformity. I see a different kind of start. A lot of planters up in northern Minnesota went from dry boxes to liquid, and they went to broadcast when they're dry because they saw that that little start had a lot to do with the finish. Here's an aha moment for me. I used to sell dry fertilizer against liquid. You can't buy pounds from a liquid guy. It's the truth. You buy convenience, you buy coverage, you buy something different in liquid. So I sold a lot of dry fertilizer. I sold high quality dry fertilizer. I sold sulfate of potash against muriate of potash. I sold the expensive stuff. And the best way to afford that is to put it into a strip till band. Any strip till farmers in the room? Yep, I mean, they say that strip tillers are recovering no-tillers. Is that a bad joke? It's a good joke, okay. Underneath both those plants is 300 pounds of a high-quality blend. And under that berm is a high-quality fertilizer mix. I've started seeing what in-furrow did. This is my aha moment. His name was Bill, and he was my customer. How about the guy in southwest Kansas a couple years ago? This was a good fun story because he thought, I don't really have time to get more fertilizer. I got to get planted. I'm going to plant all night, and I'm going to run out. Right? Wouldn't it be easy if every time you did something it was that obvious? It isn't always. But, to a dryland dryland corn farmer in Kansas, 100 bushel versus 65 is a big ROI. And he says, I think I'm going to use that starter again. What I really liked about this slide is it showed that there was 100 grams more per plant. I did it with Kurt in northern Minnesota. We did it in Kansas here, and we did it in Fred Below, Dr. Fred Below's University of Illinois, 3 years in a row. And he showed that at proven nutrient accumulation, whole plant analysis, V6, chopped it at V6. There was double, triple the phosphorus, double the potassium. And you can see that, if you look carefully, Boost was adding value to that better 624-6. So Dr. Fred Beal, University of Illinois, disagrees with most of his state. I know we're not in Illinois. It's cold up here. You guys are planting corn and the fish house is just coming off the lake. No, that's a bad joke too. See, they get old. I'm sorry. But it's cold everywhere you plant. You're always too soon. You got to get it done. You got to get it in. And Dr. Fred Beal said, you take that monopotassium phosphate material, you take that Boost, take it to the bank. There's something statistically better about QLF Agronomy's liquid carbon-based fertilizer. The part that really stands out, where we should always measure the success of a starter trial, is early season plant vigor and nutrient accumulation was significantly enhanced. That meant that I was bigger, taller, stronger, faster, just like I show here at V6. Not going to yield, just saying who's bigger, taller, stronger, faster, more biomass. So the livestock guys in the room, which one produced more silage at V6, basically? That's a proven starter. So the rhizosphere, you've heard that today thrown around, right? That's the root zone, and you hope it's this big under every plant. This is the most important place on your farm. This is where all that biology and fertilizer, all those soil corrections, all those things you've been doing, this is where it all happens for you. And when you drag those plants to your tailgate, I hope you excavate a lot of dirt. That's going to really show you some biological activity. I know the guy before me says, nobody's digging plants out here. I think you guys are getting more out. I'm just going to keep going on you here. You got to dig the plants. You got to look at your plants. You got to see what stage, how they're doing in each stage. So let's take Farm Journal, or is it Successful Farming? I forget which. I've taken his corn college for a day. Ken Ferry does a good job of promoting sulfur, sulfate form, ammonium sulfate. He's really good on agronomics in the central Illinois. But it's really easy when a smart guy like that can stand up here and say, hey, available soil phosphorus is controlled by soil microorganisms, period. I think Jason hit home on that. I think Christina could back that up. If you guys can get biology working in your favor, you're going to get more of what I heard today, 30 cents of every dollar you spend on phosphorus. So there's Ken Ferry saying that. He said phosphate applications are as just as much about feeding the soil biology as they are feeding the plant. Now here's where we got off the tracks. A lot of people came with inhibitors and said, don't you eat that, that's for my plant. Guys like myself and Steve and the people we run with, it's like, if a bug ate it, who cares? It's still there, right? So I'm going to also debunk something right here, right now. If you say sugar is just a bacteriophage, pay attention. Because I'm going to tell you today that I'm not here just to sell you the sugar that you need. I'm going to help you grow more sugar, okay? Mycorrhizae fungi, wouldn't it be cool if they looked like this? That's an exaggeration. Can you imagine it looked like that underneath your soils? Mycorrhizae fungi live on what? Beneficial fungi in your soil. Root fungi live on what? Whatever's coming out of that root. We don't need to sit here and debate it, right? Now, there's free-living fungi. They ain't going to live as long as the guys that got a home and a host and so they're working. It's like a parasite hooking up and saying, hey, if you want to live here, you got to pay some rent, right? So this is where we're probably missing the boat on fungi. But let me make it clear. At QLF Agronomy, liquid carbon-based fertilizer, I guess as the vice president of QLF Agronomy, I'm going to stay up here and stand confidently and tell you that we don't discriminate because we produce better roots, right? We want a healthy competition, and there's too much debate about this. You saw how excited Christina got about fungi. Why is she so excited about it? Because a lot of good things happen in your soils when you have fungi present. But what is the opposite of beneficial fungi? What are the things we've been using to protect our crop? And I'm not here to tell you not to protect your crop. And there's ways we can enhance that fungicide pass, by the way. But the reality is, it makes no sense to buy a fungi and then put headline amp in furrow. Please don't admit that you did that. Right? This is how crazy. They're starting to get smart about biology. All right, keep going, Tim. So imagine you have a fertilizer that's really gentle. Can you do this with your fertilizer? I don't know if you have a 12-row planter or a 24-row planter. This is Jim in Nebraska. And we see this this green spot. And you can see it's been mowed. So imagine getting out of your cab, you flip the switch to your pump. You're going to go check every row and make sure that boost didn't plug it up. I can joke about that today. Back in the day, we couldn't. We've gotten really good at our job. If you pump fertilizer, what's that rate per acre? Usually when I flip the fertilizer switch and clean the booms, what's out there in the lawn for months? White. That's pretty gentle, isn't it? Now, we were standing there joking about that with the farmer, and I kid you not, I have a picture of it somewhere. His dog came over and took a leak right there. So maybe it wasn't the product. Sorry. Neutral is something that somebody paid a lot of money to an organization that most of us don't want to talk to. The EPA has a registered version of monopotassium phosphate. It's called MKP. Now, it takes a lot of effort to say, hey, why would you want to register something that's, non-toxic and actually helps with soil and plant diseases? Unless you really wanted to charge somebody for that, right? I mean, this is interesting. The guy who brought this into the country, he's no longer alive today. Don Pasillo was the godfather of MKP. He owns the Neutral label. He started all this. I just discovered it was a really good, unique chemistry package that we could put into our starter that has some extra benefits. I was told that maybe somebody grows sugar beets close to here, so I'm going to throw some sugar beets in. University of Michigan State, Dr. Steinke, we're showing that putting boost with 1030-4-0 against 721-3 that's got boost in it. We're going to do it in furrow on the seed because over in the thumb of Michigan, it's a little lighter soil. They don't put stuff on the seed. We just want to prove it was safe for the seed. But when you go out there and scout your crops and you're a sugar beet grower, you could send your kid out there and say, how many died and how many lived. And this is what they call death by rhizoc, which is a major soil-borne disease. And I'll get to the next piece of data set. So here we have an in-furrow that has a 0 death by that soil-borne disease. And when I think it's so obvious sometimes to me and why researchers can't just be like, oh my gosh, how do you average a 0? And then you can see right now that as we color everything brown with boost, blue turns green. What's the drop on casualties from rhizoc? So the point is that we use the high-quality orthophosphate chemistry called MKP that's also registered with the EPA to show soil and plant health benefits. Okay? The next piece of information I'm going to give you for 2023, are you doing in-furrow? I don't think hands went up for that. Anybody putting in-furrow down with something, right? And are you using micronutrients? Anybody putting micronutrients with that? It's so funny. The harder we try, I go back to let's make it simple. Our science supports what the academia's been saying. You know what helps phosphorus utilization? A high-quality zinc. So for years, like 6, QLF Agronomy has been investing in research trials in trying to find the next corn spike. That's the name of our micronutrient blend. It's a zinc blend. I highly recommend you put corn spike in your 721-3 this year and just make sure you tell Nate how much you're going to need because I don't want to run out. It's a no-brainer. In fact, we test all these different complexing chelations, non-chelations, dual chelations. It doesn't matter. I keep seeing the same results, and I'm telling you straight up. So here's a program that's showing I got a 12 bushel response from my starter. I had a corn spike, and I doubled those numbers almost. That sounds too good to be true, but here's the take-home message. When you made a commitment to putting something on your planter to go in furrow, if you want to improve the efficacy of what you just put down there, sometimes you got to add a few more features to really improve it from 70% accuracy up to 90% accuracy. And that's not always more bushel. It's just I'm ensuring that I got more 12 bushel. That 12 bushel had an ROI. By adding my corn spike, my high-quality micronutrient blend like zinc to my 721-3, I just took it up a notch. Now, the other part of this equation is when that sprayer rolls around at V4, you've heard some of these guys say, don't let your plant have an unhappy day. And I'm going to weave in the words that Coach Nate told me to run with today. Stress mitigation. Okay, post-emerge spray pass. Right? Do you think if your plants are tolerant to the herbicides you're using that they really enjoy it? They have to go through what's called metabolism. So this trial right here showed that with 150 units between Murdoch, Minnesota and Wyoming, Illinois, central Illinois, we had roughly that kind of yield gain. And the program was a starter with corn spike, 721.3 with corn spike, and we followed up a post-app with amino 15, another version boost I'll touch on. So this sounds like really nice numbers, but I am proud to stand up here and tell you that the reason we're growing is that it doesn't cost a lot to play with us, and the return on investment is easier. Starting's everything. So this is a program that shows what I just talked about. In the first 30 days, we affected the uniform emergence, the dirt clinging to roots underground. All that was just a big benefit. I'm going to weave in another stress mitigation product that he plugged at the beginning of this conference. Let me tell you the story on Kelpec quick. I'll get to the video and show it to you. Kelpec is something that came to us 2 pallets in the beginning. The guy that sold it to QLF, right here, was looking for a molasses product to use as an adjuvant to help his Kelpec foliar programs on grapes in Modesto, California. Today, I have the daunting task of planning ahead and predicting how many containers to set sail from South Africa all the way around to Dunlap, Iowa. And what my point is, we went from 2 pallets to like 5 containers because we don't push hard on marketing this product. In fact, we only have like a handful of data sets on it. But you hear the word kelp, I'm going to teach you something about this product. It's not just kelp. But here's the kind of trials that we set up at QLF. You got to control. You've got Kelpec by itself, a couple passes. Get it as close to the seed as you can. If you can seed treat, it's better value. If you can put it in furrow, it works. That when you come back to that V4 plus, so that first post-submerge application of your chemicals, whatever you're doing, there's some more stress mitigation. Hit it again. Do a pint each pass, okay? That gave a nice return from 219 to 227. Everything we do is 6 replications. It's not a split in the field. Then we go to the next layer, 721.3. I highly recommend you build a program around that blend, right? And that's what we're doing here. But then we integrated that last pass, that amino 15, okay? Because what came first, the corn spike or the amino 15, right? We took a nice uniform start, and when we came back with our foliar pass, we hit it again. And there's all kinds of tools I heard about today that you can keep the stress off those plants just for the same wheel tracks that you're making through your fields. So literally at today's price or this last year's price, that program was a $99 return. I couldn't say 100. It's like my dad says, I grew 200 bushel of corn. No, it was $199, right? So Kelpec, it is a natural seaweed extract, 1 to 2 pints in a band or broadcast, 6 to 8 ounces per 100 pounds of seed. It works. Just because it's from the ocean doesn't mean that they're all the same. Any kid could tell you that those look different, but they're all kelp species. This one comes off the coast of South Africa. So here's another lesson in Kelpec. When I attend conferences, I hear the letters PGR. I can't help but think about PBR. I'm not kidding. Like, you guys come up to us at the trade show, you got any PGRs in there? I said, oh yeah, we got them all. They're all in there. And look, you guys are, I think, number 1 at sarcasm. Wisconsin's number 2, so go with me on this, okay? I joke too much, but what they found out, this is kelp blood. And you can look at it, it looks like the color of apple juice. It isn't some potassium hydroxide that took some dry kelp and made it into a humic-looking material. That's food for bugs. This is a biostimulant. And I'm going to tell you that there's all kinds of evidence around it. So if you're, like, again, everything in our product guide that you have, we didn't go say, hey, you know what, guys, we need a kelp. We got to have a kelp to sell because everybody's selling kelp. We need amino acid. Go get one of those. I can tell you that confidently, like, all this stuff came to us, and all we do at QLF Agronomy is try to put boosts with things if you haven't caught on. That's what we do. Roots and reproduction. So when you go tell people, why are you using a seaweed extract like this that's naturally derived and is obviously using a technology that doesn't destroy it in the process, it's all about roots and reproduction. You know, little lateral branches on those roots, right? More lateral branching on those roots, right? This is what we're after. So what about foliar feeding? Here's a 2-pass boost program in a replicated study. We put boost in furrow, we put boost as a foliar, and then we did seed treatment Kelpec, and we did seed treatment plus foliar Kelpec. The 2 treatments I want to separate out are 1 and 6. We feel boost is a pretty good deal. And even on top of 2 passes of boost, we hit a 5.3 bushel bump on adding a little more stress mitigation called Kelpec. Maybe that jar plays really well with some of the products that he has been experimenting on himself. But I got to show you the facts. 2022, these just keep coming in. We call these proof positive. That's where you turn it in and say, it was done right, it's honest. But this was a 3 bushel bump, adding it to our boost. Okay, so just another little trick there. If you've already sold on boost and you want to try something more, definitely Kelpec has got some unique characteristics that's not offered in other products. Don Schrieffer wrote these 2 books. They're really good. They talk about tillage commandments, the thoughtful disturbance of soil, and row support. If he were alive today, he'd say, finally somebody figured out how to handle molasses. We've known about this since the beginning. But I like his little analogy here. Next time you build your fertilizer program in furrow, I want you to think about your baby calves, because there was some cattle people that raised their hands, right? You got a show calf born yesterday. Did he get colostrum in it? My buddy has some club calves, and I said, did you get the colostrum in that? Earmuffs on it? That's what they do. In the first 8 hours of life, a calf needs 100% of its passive transfer of immunity from its first mother's milk. I know this because I used to be an animal science guy and used to sell the drugs and all that stuff that would help you get more healthy animals. So Don Schrieffer said, your fertilizer isn't about numbers. It's about building the immunity in the start of that plant. We don't put immunoglobulins in our product, but you can definitely see that we have better healthy starts on how we're building these packages. Think of your in-furrow program like a colostrum. So let's build a colostrum together. You've got a nice starter blend that you use called 721-3 MKP. Takes all the work out of it. It's got boost in it. It's easy to handle. It really is. You put it in furrow, you hit it with some corn spike. The nice thing about QLF adding the corn spike to your fertilizer blend is we'll do it at the plant, and it'll probably only cost you 50 cents a gallon to truck it versus shipping it through the mail for $2 a gallon. Because we'll do like a 2 to 5% inclusion of your starter blend. So your 721-3 comes to you fortified with corn spike. You heard Steve talk up a little bit here about a broad spectrum biological. You add a little bit of that, and you've seen a world-class product that's been on the market in 80 countries called Kelpec. So that's a pretty high-powered colostrum. Now we're going to transition to nodal roots. I think I heard the other guy talk about that area in the middle that's kind of hollow. Yeah, we want that to be the first radical root, just loving all that material and getting really shaggy and lots of mucilage. But let's talk to the nodal roots. Second leaf comes out, and this thing's just jumping out with nodal roots. Where do you put the nodal roots? Well, some of you guys call it 2x2. Here's a study we did, 2 years, 2 locations. Here's the average, comparing boost to a nitrogen stabilizer, Instinct 2, and ammonium thiosulfate. We have the expanded version of this, if you want Nate to get this for you, where we combined all those products, and it is very apparent that our carbon-based fertilizer was doing the work. Take-home message on the price of corn. Those 2 years, we always take the price of the corn that we do the trials. This is an old one, but it was roughly 13 bushel. Let's bring in precision planting. Is anybody running split gauge wheels, better known as Conceal? It's like their #1 ROI product. Some people love them. Some people say their farm's too rocky. I don't know. But we've done a lot of work with the PTI farm. In fact, 5 years we've been with them. So the first year I said, hey, put some boost as an inclusion to your UAN. Yeah, don't add it on top, make it as inclusion. But Illinois farmers, and some of you guys are saying, no, I ain't taking nitrogen away. I'm going to add boost on top of it. Yield response. Second year, finally Jason says, okay, fine. We'll drop the nitrogen out, 10% away, and we'll add boost back in. What does it do for you as a consumer when I drop nitrogen out and replace it with boost? What does it save you? Money. I take a 28 up here, right? And I turn it into a 25. My 25 is going to run against your 28. You've been doing it with ammonium thiosulfate, just nobody admitted to it. You run these 25 AA3S blends, guess what? You just reduced your nitrogen UAN by 10%. And I went back a slide and I showed you that we beat ATS, because that's really salty stuff. It's not what you want right there. If those nodal roots are coming into that band, you want to buffer out the salt. You want to make it biologically friendly, okay? So 2 for 2, QLF, putting in boost in the concealed band applications, PTI farms, showed a 9.7 bushel advantage on same amount of nitrogen applied. That's just 2 years. Bring in the third year, we even haven't had time to print this in our colors and our scheme, 11.5 bushel spread. So Pontiac, Illinois, has anybody ever been there? The PTI farm, known as the Precision Technology Institute. It's a 400-acre research farm. Yes, they're out here to promote their equipment. Who cares? We all are. but they also do some really sound agronomic studies, and they're ones that have been going on for 5 and now going on 6 years. That's the cool part. Jason started that deal. They went along with it. They built a really cool farm, and they're tracking things over time. It's not just one and done. That's what's cool about that farm. So we've been spending 5 years there. We brought a bus down with some people. We let Jason get in there and pretend to drive. That's Jason Webster. What's fun about the tour is you get on a little, get yourself a red Solo cup, get some iced tea, if you want. Go around and touch and feel and see what's going on a real live farm with real research. I will say this guy is like the Energizer Bunny. He's on the road right now. I think he's in North Carolina starting his road campaign. That was 2022. We know when we all got back in person instead of virtual. They now are on their second year. They're going to do 20 stops in 18 locations from now till the Commodity Classic on the road. So I highly encourage you to go there. He's going to talk about his top 10 ROI products from the PTI Research Farm. He's so busy that sometimes the only way I ever get any attention from him is if I talk to him when he's on a monitor somewhere at a show. And then I'll take a selfie and send it to him and say, hey, I saw you today. It was a nice conversation. I joke around too much, I know, but I like Jason. It's just sometimes he doesn't call you back when you really want something from him, but he's a busy guy. Here's what I like what he says. Banding nutrients is the future. They already know how to place seed. They figured, did they create the word singulation? Who did? 2020 vision, right? 2020 monitors. So precision planting is all about accuracy and data, right? Banding nutrients is where he says the future. I agree with him. I like how he says reallocation. I heard it today. Reallocate some of your dollars from over here and invest in some of these practices. Walk before you run. Don't go crazy. Don't beat Nate in the NCGA just yet. We'll work on that. The one thing I really like that Jason says is relay system. Every stage of growth in that crop, you don't want to have any slowdown or lapse or unhappy days. So he says growing crops is like a relay system. You got 4 runners who run as hard as they can. They hand the baton off. Everybody wins if we all push hard in each leg of the race. 2 years ago, he hit his personal best record. NCGA in the state of Illinois has not hit this record. He's not allowed to enter in the NCGA. What I'm really proud to stand up here and tell you is that back then, if you look at all that in the book, and I can circle all the QLF agronomy stuff, Boost, Amino 15, 720, like we were in all of those applications, a lot of applications. Last year, didn't call me back. We didn't get in as many. This year, in 2022, I'm going to show you what we did for a relay system. We're going to put it here, here, all the way across this program. We're going to hit this crop with as much LCBF as we can. This was our record attempt. I partnered with a company called Marco. They're based in Clinton, Illinois. They got a 100-mile radius from where they manufacture. They make good, high-quality fertilizers. We needed some more groceries. They didn't want to partner with any other companies. That's the one I like to work with. So we went to work together. Here's the fun stuff. For those of you that like to count calories, we put on over 58 pounds of sugar. I'm joking. We don't really count sugar. But for those of you that are like saying, hey, how much did he put on? 10 applications of LCBF products. Do you think we made money? You know how these guys do these high yield contests, and they're like, do they really make money? Well, the nice thing about PTI, like QLF, we look at the ROIs. So in the FurrowJet Center, we had a $33 return. I will tell you that was made up of a new product we have called 5551S-MKP and CX1. In the FurrowJet Wings, we let our partners at Marco bring their high-quality phosphorus product. Of course, we put Boost with it. That was the highest return on investment for FurrowJet in all of the 2022 data. I hope he shows that one. Gives us a little credit. Conceal, we might have spent too much money there. That's usually turns a 50 into 70. But across the board, on all that we spent there, we hit 44 bushel, or $44 return. Here's the deal. That corn was planted in June. And I don't know if he's going to tell this story or get sick of telling the story, but somebody put the wrong herbicide, put some corn killer on corn, and took out all these companies' high yield plots. And so you know what it's like to grow corn in June in central Illinois. You become the refuge acre for earworms. I don't care how many times you spray. We got 240 bushel corn, and I swear that we only had half the ears because the other half were eaten off. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, out of all that, I mean, man, if we get it back next year, I want to be the one that stand up and say 400. We did it. He has all the tools to do it. We're going to do it again. Hopefully they get it planted on time and don't kill it. So amino 15, that's another version of boost. For every 3 gallons of amino 15, there's literally a gallon of boost. So those that are flying the plane know that the more boost we can get you to fly, the better the droplets lay down. There's about a 10% sugar content in there, so that gives you about a pound per gallon with a 10-gallon weight. The cool part about investing in research in our research facility, the Agronomy Research Center, you know, we have a greenhouse, so we can practice in this kind of weather. We can do year-round. And we did an improved fescue trial, and we did some seed treatment, just to show you how happily this grass accepted this form of nitrogen blend. We had over 2 pounds of dry matter on newly established pasture blend, and we had over 5% crude protein, better forage quality. But what I like about these trials, yes, that was seed treatment with some Calpac, followed up with some amino 15. What I enjoy about the work that Anthony does in our greenhouse is you can touch and feel and see. So in this product, there is an L form of amino acid. That L isn't standing for love. That stands for L-amino acid. I almost put that right there, didn't I? So we didn't go looking for this. We're basic in urea. We're basic in molasses. And we knew that people wanted to put foliar nitrogen on with boost. And I wanted guys to quit putting UAN on. Well, it cuts the burn. I said, that's not meant to be foliar fed. That's ammonium and nitrate forms of nitrogen. We need the urea and amino acid forms of nitrogen. And it was touched on earlier today. It takes water and energy to make protein. Why do your crops need nitrogen? Ultimately, they just want to make protein. So if it's a higher protein crop like soybeans, who demands more nitrogen, soybeans or corn? Soybeans, like 5-to-1. So, amino 15, let's look at some data. In wheat, this is a farmer hat talking right now. I tell them 3 gallons, what do you guys do? 1.5 gallons, right? But look at the trend line. As we got more coverage, we improved our accuracy. This is northern Minnesota on spring wheat. You might consider this in your spray passes with wheat. Amino 15 is the best version of boost for that. Let's look at early corn and mid corn, V4, V10. We're going to go to Aurora, Nebraska. Aurora, Nebraska is why they are the Cornhusker state. It is the best place to live if you're a corn plant. And it didn't matter if it was early or late, or early and late, it was over a 9-bushel bump, just by going through with your sprayer and amino 15. Let's look at tassels, early and late, VT to R1. It didn't matter if it was eastern Iowa or western Iowa. These are our dealers and our farmers that are giving us this data back. And I know 19 bushel looks like a big swing, but you can also look at the fine print and see that these are 200 plus bushel yields. These aren't like 150. Let's go back to the PTI farm. For 2 years, we were back-to-back wins. We were 6 to 10 bushel. 1 year, Jason did a 3, 4, 5 gallon rate. This year, we came back with 5 gallons, and we showed a 10.3 bushel response. You average out all 3 years at the PTI farm, replicated research on amino 15, call Jason up and say, hey, how does that product work? He goes, really consistently. It was over 8 bushel and almost a $25 return, 3-year average. So I'm giving you some advice. Take this farmer's advice right here. This is so funny what you guys do. I mean, this takes a lot of work. A farmer comes up to me and says, here, throw this up there, show my friends. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gallons. That takes some work. He went out there and did different rates. If you just see that going that way, you know that a little more coverage goes a long ways. That's the point of this. So check out amino 15. Foliar feeding and quality forage. I'm going to give you a couple pointers on alfalfa. Anybody grow alfalfa? Here's the things you look for forage quality. Bigger leaves. More leaves per petiole. More petioles per node. The short version, I want leafy alfalfa. Leaf to stem. Here's another plant health characteristic. Steve showed it briefly. Solid stem. What is solid stem? It is non-structural carbohydrates. In fact, I did a book report a long time ago on this. This is at milkproduction.com. Did you know that those pectins, that white chalky material, that's basically the plant saying, I got so much energy, where am I going to put it all? And they store it in their non-structural carbohydrate load. That's the pectins. That's that solid stem. If you look at the cation exchange capacity, comparing a pectin in your feed you're feeding to your cows to a chunk of wood, there's a little bit more mineral holding capacity. Where do you think the tonnage comes from? I can tell you that corn silage beat alfalfa because, do you want corn silage like this or like this? You want apples versus celery. okay? That's what that is. Those are both plant health characteristics. So we've done our work on this. We do early and late. I'm going to tell you 3 to 7 days post-cut. You can put on a couple gallons of Boost. If you've got some CX1, you can hit it with that. I think Nate's working on some recipes for stress mitigation. Nobody knows this better than Larry Parr. He's been with our company 30 years. Before we turn him out to pasture, we're going to let him be a sales agronomist for the agronomy department. And I want to retire these scissors. I think we should buy him like a gold-plated scissors. Because this guy went around the state of Wisconsin, did way too many scissor cuttings, and he kept coming back with the same results. About 50, 60 bucks an acre is my return on investment. Here's one of Larry Parr's trials at one location. One application through the year, he measured 1,600 pounds. It worked in western Arizona, too, the western hay, which is really brutal environment for growing hay. They get 10 cuttings a year. We do about every other cutting. We hit it with Boost. Again, 1,600 pounds by putting Boost on. And why I wanted to show this here, because I heard someone talk about biology a few times today, and I talked about acidity. The problem in Arizona is the water's salty and so is the soil, and it's alkaline. You talk about phosphorus availability, that 30-cent number that Jason was throwing out there? Yeah, they threw hundreds of pounds of MAP out there, and they get nothing back. It is the most limiting nutrient of all their crops. All we did is put a little Boost and low-phos acid, and we created pictures like this. And they milk a lot of cows. These dairies we work with down there, they have lots of groceries. They just can't get it free. Rhizobia bacteria, you see that picture there with those little dots? The nodules did not start showing up on those plants until we created an environment for them to show up. You need your root zone to be acidic. I heard that today too. That is accurate. That's why our pH of our products are all low, 3 to 5. We want organic acids formed. That's another sign of biologic activity. That's why that pH of that soil is probably pushing an 8. So Boost, it's been a history in the making. We've been a lot of places. I'm sorry you heard Dan Lipka's video. We were like subliminal messaging you all day. You heard him. He's using a lot of Boost. I've heard that thousands of times. I know Dan personally. He does use a fair amount of Boost, but it isn't a lot. It's no more than any average farmer. Boost is priced for coverage. We're not 2 quarts, we're 2 gallons. The only thing that ever holds us back from going higher rates is the pilot who says it's too heavy. Got to go down a little bit, right? Or someone who says, I only spray 8 gallons. You ain't going to get 2 gallons shoved through your booms if you don't put enough water, because Boost is pretty thick. There's a lot of stuff in it. I said 10 to 20% inclusion. I'll show you some reasons why, but it can go with other fertilizer if you do a jar test instead of a tank test. That's important. We're low pH. You got to do the jar test before you just throw it in the tank. But 10 to 20% inclusion, Boost will improve the performance of most fertilizers that it's compatible with. And honestly, the reason we're growing is you guys seem to like this stuff. You put it here, you put it here, you put it here, you put it here. You're not really just, what's my rate per acre? I said, well, how many trips are you taking? There's other sugar products on the market that tell the same thing. Treat the solution, not the acre. Foliar feeding, QLF invested in some herbicide trials. Why would Quality Liquid Feeds buy herbicide trials? Are we trying to get in that little box you call an adjuvant? Put a sticker on the side of it, use a pallet jack? No. That's not us. You saw the trucks we deliver it in. We're not a small package company. The reason we buy herbicide trials is really simple. In today's world, we just want permission to ride along. We wanted to prove that we didn't hinder any efficacy of your weed control. What's cool about doing a herbicide trial is actually there's a control where they don't spray herbicides. Leave a little spot on your farm where you don't spray herbicides. You want to see what your weed bank is, right? So what do you see there? You see there on 50 bushel beans, we didn't get over 50 bushel until Boost was added to those chemistries. Here's what you guys have been showing us. You come out with your Flex Star, the next day you're taking a picture and said there's something different to the line. Talk about stress mitigation. I'm going to be very real and sincerely honest with you. Quality Liquid Feeds doesn't have a team of engineers that designed an adjuvant product that has really good drift control capabilities and unique adjuvant characteristics. We designed a product to go with fertilizer. And you, the farmer, came along and said, you got to come see this. Put it in a plane. Put it in a sprayer. So I'm pretty confident in this. And so if you want to talk after class, we can get into it more. But right now you have a decision to make. I don't know what chemistry you're going to use for post-app. The only one I can't tell you to put it on with is Extend. But you can go with enlist. In fact, there's multi-replicated study right there showing over a 4 bushel bump. You're not going to get any duo this year or next year. You're going to get the 1. And when you put the Roundup with it, we're going to teach you to put more water with it. But this is the cool part about this study. You get a call from the researcher and says, one of these treatments has a problem. We think we dinged your beans. The one that's showing stress, the only difference in that 2,4-D application is it does not have boost. I mean, if this is the future for growing soybeans, is to stress them, I don't get it. It's a daylight-sensitive crop. They want you to plant early. They want you to maximize photosynthesis, and you're out there, doing the burner thing. I want you to try this. Anybody tried this in the room? Anybody put this with some Cobra, Flexstar? In Iowa, maybe that's more of a thing because they got a weed down there called corn. It's pretty fun. Okay, so LCBF is more than just a fertilizer tool. In fact, this is kind of fun. Anthony decided to show how he could float a paper clip. You ever tried to float a paper clip? Does anybody use surfactants to break surface tension on your spray pass? You see how some companies would want to put us in a box and sell it to you? Boost has some additional benefits. You see how we don't want it beaded up and sitting on the surface like that? What we want is you want your Boost like that other illustration where it just sticks to the leaf. In fact, look underneath the microscope. That's a good sticky spreader right there. That's the surfactant quality. So we didn't go looking for all of these characteristics. We just got lucky. And you guys validated everything that the wind tunnel said was true, that the pilot says works good. Can you do that? And these are all real videos of real people. So drift control, humectant, that means it doesn't dry out in the leaf. Okay? Improved intake, we see yields from that. The biggest one I like is metabolism. I think that's why we show yield, because we power through some of the stresses, stress mitigation. And we wouldn't be on the acres we are if we weren't compatible. But please, it is so important. I didn't have to have this in the slide rule, but we have a whole section on how to mix Boost, Enlist, and Roundup together. I'll give you the short version. The solution is dilution. Don't fill your sprayer tanks 20% full. Fill them 80% full. Make space before you put everybody together. It is like a light bulb switch goes on. And we've had a few concerns and complaints that we didn't create. But all of you are upset because I want my Boost on. So how are we going to get this chemical program to play with Boost? Because if you saw 4 bushel and $40, $50 returns and your plants look happy, who doesn't want that? So soybeans is low-hanging fruit for Boost. It's a no-brainer. Here's some trials that were real replicated on coverage. 2, 5, 7, 10 we put on at V3 and R3. What's really interesting about this is it was 4 to 8 bushel, and it showed that 2 passes beat 1. In Wisconsin, the guy who says that there's sugar makes the profits go down, he used to go to college with him, I won't mention who he is. But anyway, even on his trials, we saw a response. And he says sugar makes the profit go down. So my program on beans is real simple. Build it from this. 2, 2, 2. You can pick one of those 2s. But if you really want to keep that plant happy all the way through its life, help with the emergence and the establishment of rhizobia bacteria. Once you have a nice established stand of soybeans, don't negate that effect with a stressful chemical pass. Put Boost with that. When you extend that reproductive window, that's when she just keeps flowering and flowering. Non-determinate beans, just flowering more and more. That's a good thing. And don't take my word for it. Look at guys like this. This is a guy that sells Beck seed. You might know of PFR. He's a PFR location. He's been a big promoter of sugar, and now he's dealing Boost. Which is kind of interesting because he went from a few totes to over 700 ton of Boost just in the little area around Iowa where he's at. His name is Wade McNeil. So whether it's early or late, that's pictures of a soybean in Illinois or Nebraska. The problem I see out there in the field is we're accepting too much of that. Now when we hired our field research agronomist, he has 2 more degrees than me. That's fine. That's good. That's what we want. We want to hire better people. He said, I'm plant physiologist. I can tell you that that picture, Tim, is disease. And I said, it has about a 90-foot bite. What follows injury? More disease. Why do you want to open yourself up to more disease? This is real. One thing that people say about that picture right there is that when they look at those droplets, They like seeing their target. So, here we go. Another way you might see salt mitigation there is when you see UAN broadcast on a leaf. I don't recommend it. I recommend streaming. But this is what it looks like when you put boost in. Because all carbon does this. You've heard a lot of talk about humics today. You've heard talk about sugar. And you're going to hear about molasses. All of those carbon products physically buffer salts. And maybe that's some of the benefits we're seeing. But molasses is way different than the other humic products in the market because we really like that we're a carbohydrate. We're an energy source. So we're not the first people to say this. John Deere Farrow Magazine published an article. Kip Colors was out on the road for a long time telling everybody he could grow trees. He called soybeans, right? Big old bushes of beans. What does he confess? Every time a sprayer moves on his farm, he was putting 2 to 3 pounds of sugar on. This paraphrases everything that I'm preaching to you right here. Steve McManam's is a senior research at Real Farm Research, which was owned by Aurora Co-op, the largest co-op in Nebraska. But I could just let someone read that to the class and say, that's enough, that's right there, that's all we need to know. Because everything I'm saying is about nutrient uptake, microbial activity, improving residue decomp, mineralization, as Nate likes to say. Not only improves the nutrient uptake, it helps herbicides taken in. I'm not taking full credit for that, but there is some evidence of, just like when you're foliar feeding, you want your herbicides to get in, right? And soybeans like sugar there because they want to see more root exudates. That's what feeds the biology. This gentleman here is named Dr. Gary. He's from Southwest Kansas. That video you saw that's been on the loop with that boost propulsion that we've been flying over you all day with in between breaks, that's Tri-Rotor Crop Service, and this guy works for them. He's an entomologist in his prior career, a PhD. He said in all of his career, he's always believed in sugars. He's a big advocate for boost. He can control aphids. There is truth in this bricks thing. When you compare like-kind materials, the healthier the blood in the plant, the more resilient it is against pests. Tom Dykstra, that little screenshot of a screenshot, look his name up, Tom Dykstra, and he'll educate you on the advantages of bricks. Or you could be like our buddy Ross here, carry around a refractometer and tell me which one's sweeter. You guys know what a refractometer is? It's like checking your blood, seeing what your dissolved solid content is. There you go. So the Fertilizer Institute is here to protect our rights to use fertilizer. I didn't know if you knew that. They're an organization that lobbies in DC, and they have a campaign out there called the 4 R's. I think the 4 R's are great. In fact, I think we fit the 4R program. The first 3 I really agree with. Right place, right time, and what you're working with, right source. The one you guys as farmers and agronomists have a hard time figuring out is, what was the right amount? So this is a definition in your product guide you can take home, but basically just saying that we're going to work with biology and we're going to reduce this movement of nitrogen and make this happen. And some R's that I like to put out there, how can you retain your nitrogen? How can you recover your nitrogen? More importantly, how can you recycle nitrogen? And the one I'll get at the end here is resiliency. A lot of companies out here selling biologicals. I like it when they put trials out there. This trial here showing a biological added to our starter blend, except what he's not telling you is he used a fraction of what he normally sells to the almond growers, and there was statistical separation. There's an article out there called What's the Difference Between a Biostimulant and a Biological? Nate, if you don't have these people signed up for our newsletter, you won't get to read all this information. We put 4 newsletters out quarterly, and they're all really good. And they don't just talk about how good we are. They talk about some real interesting things. I outline that trial in detail, adding a biological to our product. Mucilage is a real deal. The science supports it. If you can improve the water holding capacity around your roots by 100,000 times, why wouldn't you pay attention? You get into Central Illinois from another fertilizer company that I can't mention, and he put Boost with it, and even after he washed the roots the day we arrived, he couldn't get rid of all the evidence. Dirt clinging to roots. What's really fun is when we show up at your plot and you pick the ears that came from those plants. That's pretty fun. We'll go back to the University of Illinois. If you're not walking your fields and you can't really see the stress, I don't know, Nate said it only rained 5 inches all day, all year, right? In Illinois, I'll just pick on those guys. They complain if it hasn't rained a significant amount in the last 3 days. But let's just say you get into a drought of 10 days. When does your corn learn to behave, or when does it not show stress? Which side of the row is showing more stress mitigation? That's mucilage, that's biological activity, that's plant health. Take you back to Arizona. When you look at 32% nitrogen going against a boost 25, literally a 25% reduction in nitrogen and 25% boost put back in. We dig all these corn plants and we wash the roots, and you can see the difference right down the row. More mucilage, more dirt, clean roots. This is all you need a nose for to find biological activity. I've even heard the Proven 40 guys say there's more mucilage underneath their plants. So here we go. We got John, Dr. Chernicki. That's grower standard practice. That's the boost added to the nitrogen. In Arizona, that's how they put their fertilizer on. You see the stream? They literally just dump it in the creek, and they flood irrigate. What's really fascinating about this, so all season long we're growing this crop on UAN versus UAN and boost. And look at the upstream root ball. It's breaking the wake of the one downstream. And then if this was an NRCS event, this was what we call rainwater simulation. Which one has more aggregate stability? This is what biology can do for you. If you don't think that's impressive, then some days when you leave your field, like in the desert, that's what the desert looks like, right? One area of the field has moisture in it. The other one does not. That was taken the same day this picture was taken. And all we needed to prove to the grower is that we could grow the same amount or more corn silage tonnage on less salt. Because in Arizona, they don't want more salt. They can grow 30 to 40 ton silage, but the problem is their water's salty, their soil's salty, and they plant on a ridgetail to get out of the salt. So when you can reduce the salt, which is their nitrogen, that's a big deal. Soil aggregate superpowers. You can't see the top of my graph, but basically more air and water space in your soils. Biology builds the homes. You need to get out of their way. You need to help foster that relationship. And that will facilitate, right there, Nate, more nutrient mineralization. Carbon is still the keystone nutrient. But what I'm going to stand up here and tell you, differentiate right now today, we are not a humate. We are not Leonardite or derived. I've had to go through this several times where it's like, well, why can't we just put them all together? Because one thing we're going to show you is we like the pH of our product. And I'm really proud to say that we work for a carbohydrate company. We emulate what Mother Nature does. And I'm going to teach you how to make more sugar. Residue decomposition, and back in 2015, we put nitrogen out there with boost. We showed residue decomp. But what we didn't know is that we were going to elevate, here it is. This is before I met Jason and Christina, WEON levels. Think of your weed and feed pass putting 10 gallons down in early spring, and on one side you throw a couple gallons of boost with it, and you do these tests that they're talking about, and you see a substantial increase in water extractable organic nitrogen. Dr. Arden Anderson says that we can stabilize nitrogen by hooking it to a carbohydrate. I'm going to say that we can help keep it in play, and definitely Next Level Labs is proving this right for us. So let me show you my friend Jordan. He works with me. He helps coordinate your loads. It's a thankless job. Please be nice to him. How long have you been using Boost, Tim? Well, judging by my size, I've been using it my whole life, right? We've been in business about 12 years. And it's a question I'm going to pose to you. Based on the evidence I'm presenting, when should you put Boost with UAN? I heard that the hands didn't go up, did it? Nobody uses UAN, or do we use UAN at any point in time? Yep. And I say every time. 3 for 3 wins in Clarion, Iowa, which is upstream in the Des Moines River watershed from Des Moines. And we were 3 years wins on a side dress trial. Here's what the headline should read. Des Moines Register, read all about it. Iowa farmer split applies nitrogen, puts literally on 100 pounds split applied. This trial was basically looking at different inclusion rates of Boost. The headline is pretty obvious. This location grew 220 bushel corn, replicated data, and he split applied nitrogen. Now, am I telling you to go out there and do that? Absolutely not. I don't want that on that's not my responsibility. You got to determine the right amount. But these are the facts of what can be done. So I'm going to give you another idea of looking at Boost. Boost doesn't treat the acre, it treats the solution. And we've shown a few solutions to you today. This is my dad, and this is his applicator. Took me forever in the town I grew up in to get him to put Boost on for my dad. So funny. I'm sitting in the back of the room and I'm hearing all this talk about soluble calcium, and my text message comes through. And you can see the old thread. Hey, Blake drove the tractor today. Cool, that's my little kid. I said, what my dad always texts, like, did you feed mineral to the cows? Yes, I got that done while I was here too. I don't know where he's at today, but he says, Tim, what is the product I can get to mineralize my soil and get more calcium in there to let me know? I was sitting back there and that text came through. I couldn't resist to throw it up here. I used to work for a guy that was kind of like the calcium godfather. Like, he was Midwestern Bio, a product called, I told him, buy some BioCal. It's got calcium oxide, hydroxide, sulfate. It's finely ground and it's got some boron with it. That was my foundation. That's where I began my career. Calcium as a fertilizer and a soil amendment, all in one. And I don't know where he's at, some show, someone's trying to sell something to him, but I better get to him after class here and say, hey, hold on, don't buy nothing just yet. But isn't that ironic that he sent that at that time? So I tell that story because this is my dad's farm, and here we are putting on a 4-way blend residual spray program. Because at 80 years of age, Dad's not going to side dress, not on our hills, right? It's all one and done. It's a lot of Boost, and it's a lot of UAN, and it's a shot of Akron, full rate. Do you notice what's riding behind the cab of that truck? A nitrogen stabilizer on the market. Wouldn't it just be more convenient if Boost could come in a box and you could put ounces on? For you, would it work? That's what we're up against. That's Nutrisphere. And I don't mean to pick on it, but here's the deal. When Jerry smelt this, Jerry's the applicator, the first jar, you can see the Akron mix in there. That's straight 32. The other jar is 5 gallons of Boost and 30 gallons of 32. I don't know what percent inclusion that is, but that's a bunch. And I let Jerry smell the jars. The guy's been driving that sprayer for way too long. Maybe his nose broke, I don't know. He smells it and he goes, where'd my nitrogen go? Have you guys not smelled Boost and UAN? Do we have those samples to pass around? That'll wake you up, right? When you take the pH from 7 to 5 down to 4.5, with just 10% inclusion, you ultimately are converting ammonia into ammonium. That isn't molasses masking the smell. That is hardcore chemistry. Because the value of Boost, I'm going to give you another value proposition here. There's a lot of groceries in Boost that isn't just bug food. It is tank chemistry. It's got sulfuric acid and ammonium sulfate in it. So Jerry thought his nitrogen disappeared. It's still in the jar. I don't know where you come from, but when I can't smell ammonia, that's basically volatility, right? Key feature of Boost. So I'm going to teach you so you can teach the people that left and didn't get this information, but here it is. 2 reasons you buy Boost is energy, carbohydrate. We're all pretty accepting that there's something to this biological thing, so we're going to get involved with it, right? Energy. Second one's low pH. I'll quote a really good agronomist that I knew years ago. Here's the benefits. We're going to deliver more chemistry by working with your biology. We're going to extend the life cycle of your applied nitrogen because we're going to work in concert with biology and not hit them over the head. If you take a culvert and you bury it 10 feet deep and you put tile lines 5 feet deep and you pattern tile your farm, you could do some research. I might hire you, right? And all summer long, we're going to dip into that culvert known as a lysimeter well. We're going to measure the nitrate concentration from a season of applications. This is a research trial. I don't have the 2-year average, but it's pretty much says the same point. With 20 pounds less of applied nitrogen, we gained 22 more bushels, split applied UAN with Boost. And in that lysimeter well, 2 years in a row, we showed 17 to 22% reduction in nitrates. See, because I took care of this now I'm showing you this. We're going to stop this in nitrogen movement, and we're going to play with biology and keep it in cycle longer. It's what's known as the nitrogen cycle. And biology plays the role in this cycle. Quality Liquid Feeds has been in the fertilizer business, managing weox and weons. I got this in my head now after coming here today. Nitrogen to carbon, protein to energy, that's what we do with a cow's stomach. The second most consumed commodity that we handle as a feed company, over 1 million tons of feed every year, is urea. Now, I highly discourage you from taking a pail of urea and put it in the bunk. That's not a good way to feed your cows. But if you melt it down and you put it with molasses, you just discovered a really good biological stimulant for cow stomachs. That's the feed formula. We're in the non-protein nitrogen, weon, most available form, We hook that to biology by using a carbohydrate blend like molasses. So maybe we need to look at nitrogen cycles this way. Maybe it's all about microbial biomass. Maybe this is the way you improve your soil health and gauge if you're better than your neighbors and heading in the right direction. So this is the part that unfortunately Next Level Labs did not get to see, but I encouraged our research agronomists to work with Jason because I met him when they were first building their lab in South Dakota. And I said, there's a guy, before he did all what you just heard here today, like I saw him in the very beginning starting this lab, and I said, what better way to order soil health tests for a guy like that? See here? This is their results. On that test where we showed the reduction in nitrates, we went out and did the soil test. This is the before and after, WEON to WEOC. The only thing you guys really need to understand when you look at this picture is that every time we add a boost to UAN, those numbers got bigger. That's WEON to WEOC in pre-emerged weed and feed spray program. What about side dress? Every time we add a boost, we improved the WEON and WEOC relationship. That was through their lab. How does this work? Well, we feed biology. We can measure that really easy through respiration. When I first met Jason in his lab, there was a whole room of cups with those little Solvita tests in them. And he was measuring respiration. More CO2. There's the secret formula we told you about. How plants do sugars, the blood of the plant, and yeast metabolites. That's our recipe. Back in 1955, they published this, and they've circulated at the Commodity Classic a few years back. This guy apparently grew 300 bushel corn. Anybody in 4-H? There's not many people left in 4-H. I suppose if he wrote it in his 4-H record book, that's as good as the NCGA, isn't it? But read the highlighted part. See, there's some doubters out there. They're called scientists. There's no way, like a 4-minute mile, nobody's run it. Nobody did until a couple years later. Nobody can run that fast. There's not enough daylight or carbon exchange. CO2. What do you guys hear in the news? I heard someone say, what about my carbon credits? What is the most misunderstood, misconstrued, and probably the wrong thing to be looking at? What do plants love? Carbon dioxide. And what do they make for us in return? Sugar. I'm going to teach you how to make more sugar. So this is a guy that says, if you want to get 300 bushel of corn, you got to get some more carbon cycling. You got to get your soils breathing. You got to get things cycling and moving. And you got to have more daylight. You got to maximize photosynthesis. This is just common sense. And he's at 300 bushel corn, probably with cultivating a checkerboard pattern and 20,000 plants with 3 years hanging on them. I don't know. You read that article, it's hilarious. He's like, we put on 30 loads of barnyard litter. It took us 3 years, and then we finally started seeing things improve. What is that, Steve? That's biological activity. He didn't do it year one. Built his soil. So here, let's look at Next Level Labs, field scale, CO2 respiration. Water applied, nitrogen with boost applied. Boom. That's a burst. Field scale replicated data. Come back at the side dress window. That's the Easter colors there. This is the Easter slide. It's got blue and pink and pastels. It's funny. I don't know why we got blue. Did you make those, Shannon? The check is water. That's the placebo. You come with a big salt bath, UAN. You take 10% away. You turn your 28 into a 2500, but it's brown and sweet and doesn't smell like ammonia. Boom, CO2. This is the part I wanted the Next Level Lab people to see. So when we record this, we're going to send that to them because they need to hear this information. This is right from their lab. We put out a 40-gallon shot and a 10-gallon shot. The highest yielding thing on this plot was 130 pounds of split applied nitrogen, the lower amount in the weed and feed, and the big shot on the side dress. That kind of makes sense, right? And it was, look at the nitrogen use efficiency on those numbers, 130 some pounds applied nitrogen with over 200 bushel corn. Okay, think of it this way. Next Level Labs tests your soil and shows a difference from where you put nitrogen alone or nitrogen with a boost in your pre-emerge window. Every time you see a line that's above 0, that's an increase in phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, manganese, iron, zinc. That's the pre-emerge window. Now we're coming back with side dress. You want to get more out of your soil test? Here's the side dress application. We're running with straight UAN versus a 10% inclusion of boost with UAN, and my phosphorus jumps 10%. My potassium, as like what Nate said, hasn't rained. What doesn't move? Things shut down. nutrients become unavailable, but potassium, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, manganese, all that. This is what I'm trying to say, is that fertilizer could be holding back your biology that in turn hold back your availability of nutrients in your soil. So why don't we buffer that out? Why don't we make your boost treated UAN more palatable with biology? Anybody got manure out in the crowd still? No? The livestock guys left? You got some manure? Today, all right, I can't resist. We have a county in Iowa. Do you know where Brown County is? Brown County. You know where Lambeau Field is? Okay. There's more cows than Packer fans in Brown County, literally. We've got big dairies up in those counties. Livestock production today has a lot of manure, do they not? So pay attention here. You guys don't like this. Viking fans are like, no. Kurt, come on. I didn't really tell someone to do this. This is a really good farmer in Iowa who's putting on 3,500 gallons of hog manure. That's pretty precision. Sometimes when you have custom haulers, you don't put it on that precision. You get it hauled. 3,500 gallons of liquid hog manure. And I had a product on the market at one time that was treating 1 gallon per 1,000 gallons. So if you look at the rates on this trial, we're going to treat each honey wagon with roughly 3/4 of a gallon per 1,000 and 1.5 gallons per 1,000. Nice looking roots and difference. Not bad looking ears across all of those. And if the soil health people were still here, they could say the SLAN test. This is the microbial protein content measured in a soil lab test. The program you heard this morning, there it is. We've been asked to treat manure. I just was kind of holding back on that one a little bit because I want to make sure that we can keep up with it too. I think there's some little tricks we can do that we can improve the treatment of the manure. But this is what it is, farmer trial. We don't tell you who it is. He's a good farmer. There's the soil health score. It seems to me that when we treated the manure a year ago last fall, before these yields were taken, this is fall application. He's showing good soil health activity. And for less than 20 bucks an acre, because that's what it is when you put a big shot of boost on, he got 8 bushel. So I don't know where the future lies, but I know that too much manure is still too much manure. And it takes energy and biology to process all that. I'm going to keep going here. Azotic technologies. Have anybody tried the Envita product? I just want you to know that that bacteria came from sugarcane. That's all I'm going to say today about that. There's guys out here talking about the highest yielding crops and the healthiest soil is when we can convert our nitrogen sources into weon, is basically what John Kemp is saying here. If we camp out in nitrates too long, it's going to end up here in the Gulf of Mexico. Right? Nutrients do not drive, or excesses do not drive yield. And the best practice definition is that all of you are going to start doing this. I don't think that carbon-based fertilizer is something that just a few of you are going to try once and quit. In fact, I think that we are actually opening the door for lots of carbon products. Based on our results and our story, as small as we are opening up the door. People are saying, I knew there was something to this. So my goal in life is to make this as widespread adoption. I'm going to put a plug out for my friend Alan. He wrote an article that was peer-reviewed, just came out here recently, on soil energetics. You guys want to look into this. This is really cool stuff. It talks about how do you quantify the functionality of your soil. Basically, when you touch and feel and dig your soil, how good a health is it? And he partnered with a guy named Jerry Hatfield, who years ago looked at this boost in UAN thing in Iowa. He's been a 40-year soil health guy from Ames, Iowa. Says he's retired, but he's still out there talking. Look up Jerry Hatfield and look up soil energetics, because when you can see that screenshot, it's real fuzzy because it's from a phone. This is where I'm going to tell you right now. We're going to make more Minnesota sugar for you folks because we're going to treat your solution, not your acre. Does anybody know what that is you're looking at right there? What is that? I heard Jason say you want to roll a marble down there. That's first. I learned something every time I'm on the road. You got to roll a marble down that midrib. That is a beautiful, big, green solar panel. And this is where we make more Minnesota sugar for you. The Gophers are going to have more sugar in their fields when they play with QLF agronomy, because all we're going to do is enhance this thing called photosynthesis and carbon cycling. I've shown you CO2 respiration. I've shown you organic nitrogen. I've shown you bricks. I mean, this is where this is going. That's what I love about this product, is because it's so simple, stupid. It checks all the boxes. And then there's books in science that support this. I don't expect you guys to go home and open up a chapter of the excretory function of higher plants. But take my word on it. If a plant's healthier, it's going to exude more energy and carbohydrates to its community. And guys like Bruce, Dennis Warnicki from Tanio Biologicals, another good biological company, says he estimates there's 20,000 pounds per acre per year on a healthy corn crop. Jerry Hatfield estimates there's more sugar exuded through your corn crop than that. So my 58 pounds of sugar is a joke, right? You guys caught that. I'm not expecting you guys to go pour it on there like that, be a moron. That was just a high yield attempt. But 5 to 6 gallons every year, every pass, enhancing the efficacy of the solutions you're trying to treat, would help improve this simple function right here. So we are not a humic, we are not a fulvic, we are a carbohydrate-based product, we are low pH, you can smell and see the difference, and we have a ton of data to support what we do. And you want to take a screenshot of this one too, because there's no time to cover all this man's work. With all its attention on CO2, this guy has shown through the rhizophagy cycle that if you have too much elevated CO2 in your soil, the thing that gives you this good score for Haney, right? If it doesn't release, I'm going to demonstrate right now. This is what's called soil compaction and loss of respiration, right? CO2 has to cycle, and Dr. James White shows that. Michael McNeil is another guy I want you to follow. He has a whole talk on resiliency, and he's not just talking about your soils. He's talking about your communities and farming. How does your soil health fertility management affect, how does your fertility management affect your soil health? I think this is the most brilliant word there is when it comes to defining soil health. The definition of resiliency is to recover quickly from difficulties and challenges. It's so true. If you've got good biological activity, they're going to bounce back quicker. If you're suppressing that all the time, it will not. And I know I went on for a little while here, but this is kind of the take-home message right here. That's my kid on the right. That's his friend on the left. I got access to some pretty cool t-shirts. I'm going to show you this one here. This is a good t-shirt. It's all about plant health and doing it profitably. Fertilizer is not evil. Fertilizer is not bad. The problem is you guys just haven't figured out how a better way to work with it. Fertilizer should make you money, right? And as my friend Nate would say, hashtag stress mitigation, hashtag mineralized Minnesota. This was a lot that he jammed into a day. And I apologize if you guys are going to be late for chores, but there is a lot of content that Jason and Bob and Steve and Tim and Christina and Nate, the stuff he's laying out here, this is the future. So it's really simple. If I would just shut up and say one thing, wear the t-shirt, right? Boost your biology, boost your yields. Now I have a special edition at home of this t-shirt right here. Yep, you see, because we have the Corey Berg, he's the owner of QLF, we have the Corey Berg edition, because we know a graphic design lady that helped him make this cool logo. In fact, our edition shows that the sweet corn guy, or the corn guy, is chugging a can of Boost. And he's got silk coming out of his shirt. Corey Berg did, he's got a little bit of silk coming out of his shirt, so. Anyway, I mean, the guy's sincere and honest. He validates everything he says. Took him 2 years of trying it himself. So I can tell you right now, that's the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. And as far as QLF Agronomy is concerned, we're not going away. We're going to be here for the long haul now. And we're a company that's family owned, and if you want honest and truth, that's what we bring. Appreciate your business and you guys that stuck around, your time and attention. It means a lot. We'll have to edit out some of my goofiness, and then we'll go from there. So any hard questions, I'm ready. I'm the guy that takes the hard ones. Not Jason Schley, by the way.
Biological activity.
If you don't add water to Boost, it won't freeze, it won't salt out, it will settle, it needs homogenized. Recirculation is still going to be the thing when you're working with these materials, but we recirculate really nicely. It is stable, it will not grow in your tank. The low pH helps. In the starter blend, we don't even disclose all the little features that help stabilize it in the tank. We want the biology to happen once the planter rolls and the sprayer rolls. Our products are extremely stable. You add water to boost, you raise the pH, you reduce the dry matter, and because the air we're breathing right now has stuff in it, stuff starts growing. I had a farmer once that told his friend, like, and this is not the way we want to do business with you, but he showed up at the Iowa Farm Power Show. It's next week. I remember this very well because he shows up and he goes, I really like your stuff, but man, there's stuff growing on the top of my tank. And that was an old formula and whatever. But it's so funny because his buddy goes, that's how we know it's working. The number one job I have is to make this product easier handling and present sound agronomic data, right? If we can accomplish both of those, we're going to change and alter our products. We're probably on to version 4.0 with Boost. So we take a 63% dry matter product, doesn't salt out, doesn't separate out, right? The solution is going to be 4032S from top to bottom. There's organic material in there, so when you shake it up, it looks like it's got to be homogeneous. But you can't find anything on the market that's 30% TSI, over 3.3 pounds per gallon of plant sugar, that has a pH that has that kind of buffering capacity in the UAN. So yeah, sugar, water, in the air we breathe is probably why that's unstable. You don't have to dissolve the sugar in Boost. It already comes in that, half the size of DNA size. It's in solution. So if you add water to our products, we say use them within 72 hours. We've cheated that rule a few times. You put them in UAN, because there's such a high concentration of nutrients, nothing's going to grow there until you dilute it.
So why drop it when you mix it with UAN? Can you put ATS in there too then? Or?
I heard a couple speakers today talk about the value of sulfur. Someone said I put 50 pounds out per acre as a soil amendment and crop fertilizer. I really don't see how we can get there with ammonium thiosulfate. There are certain jobs that dry fertilizers do that liquids will never replace. My challenge with ATS is it's really salty and it takes the pH the wrong way. And so Boost will mix with ATS and UAN, but as you bring gypsum, sulfate of potash, 50 pounds of sulfate sulfur per acre per year, you're already mending the soil. You might just save some space in your tank for Boost.
Yeah, you're only running 1 or 2 gallons per every 10 gallons of UAN.
So they're doing 10 to 20% inclusions. I'm just saying that I never thought that we would be necessarily positioned against them, but I don't think that's the case today, but a year ago, Boost cost less than ATS and UAN. So we want low pH. That's the sulfur that we use in Boost is for pH control, not for 2S analysis. We're not chasing analysis, we're changing pH. So it's a hard decision. If you don't have sulfur on your farm, you should keep sulfur in your farm coming from some source. But some sources are better than others because plants eat SO4. They don't eat elemental. And there's a lot of elemental in some of these products that need to convert to SO4. I just don't like the pH and the saltiness of it. So it will play with ATS, and you just have to make sure you create enough water and space because it's more concentrated than 32. 120026 is a hotter mix than 32. Does it salt out up here? ATS?
Yeah, in cold weather.
Yeah. We're more confident in these answers today than we were 10 years ago. Why beat around the bush anymore? It's like we're trying to accomplish two things, energy and pH. And if something's counterproductive to that, high pH, let's just be real. But I would never pull sulfur away in any way, shape, or form from somebody who's not addressing sulfur on their farm. And I heard Mr. Wells say, I want 50 pounds of sulfate sulfur. That'll make any farm look good. But tell me how you're going to get there with 50 pounds of sulfate sulfur. Where's that coming from? It isn't coming in liquid. Right? It's going to come from sulfate sulfur somewhere. AMS, Calsol, gypsum, K-Megs, SOP. So that's where I say maybe you can make room if you got sulfur in your program. Sulfur is involved in making humus. Sulfur is involved in nitrogen use efficiency. Sulfur is involved with protein quality. Sulfur is involved with moving calcium and magnesium, because you heard the guy just before us that said displace the magnesium. There's a guy named Dick Goff. I don't know if he's still alive. I wanted a t-shirt that said, what would Dick Goff do? I met him. He was A&L Labs. He's the guy who really talked about flocculation. He's a great guy. And so people are using calcium to displace magnesium, and sulfur is part of that equation. So Anybody using ammonium sulfate in their programs? Dry ammonium sulfate. If you're broadcasting something dry in the fall, P and K, you should be looking for some sulfur. You're already making a trip. Put some sulfur with it. The ammonium sulfate is stable. Ammonium nitrate won't leach, won't volatilize. And the sulfate sulfur is what you want. I can't shove all that into Boost. And if you want calcium to solubilize on your farms, I hope you have a base saturation that's over 65%. Because 55%, good luck solubilizing that. My dad asked me that question, and I should respond as a true agronomist and say, Dad, you need a soil test. Where's your pH at? Instead of buying a calcium product or buying BioCal, you sell a couple hundred loads of it. I was good at it. I said, where's the pH, Dad? Because we might need some high cal lime. Because if you have acidity in your soils, you're going to fix two things. You're going to solubilize the calcium and fix your pH. Once that honeymoon's over, you got to switch to a different calcium product because you don't have that free hydrogen to make that reaction. So sometimes you got to tell a farmer the tough news is, hey, you know, you might want a lime the first time.
Okay. Okay, is there any other questions then?
Make sure you get a t-shirt.
Yeah. So, just to finalize things here real quick, I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't think, I had to step out for a minute, but I didn't think you touched on the enlist.
Oh,
Okay?
I touched on the enlist.
Yeah.
Do it. With Boost, yeah.
It's a no-brainer. It's 2 to 3 bushels, real fast. Sometimes it's 2 to 5. Drift control right there. The other no-brainer.
Don't let your Roundup and your enlist touch. Corteva says that, pretty plain as day. What does that mean exactly? More tank space in your sprayer. Like literally, if you fill your first chemical mix and then you run away and top it off with water, make sure it's fuller than half empty. Does that make sense? Or literally in your induction cone. I've had farmers tell me that they did a rinse with the hose in between addition, and that was the night and day difference. If you put Boost in and you call him and say, we plugged, say, was that your first tank? He goes, I'm sorry, keep going. We clean it out. It happens. Did you guys have any issues combining 2,4-D and glyphosate last year? Also known as branded products, right? Durango is the preferred glyphosate form. We have a whole presentation on that. Can you buy that today? It's weird, isn't it? Like, I think if you were the company selling a list, you'd want to sell Duo. That takes the work out of it. But you can't get your hands on that either, so that's what I'm told. So just the solution is dilution. Don't let things touch each other. Be careful. But it's perfect. It works great. And as far as dicamba goes, we're never going to be on their approved list because I told you how much we love low pH. To help your business too, one more thing. We've made investments in equipment. We used to do planter setups and you name it. That was just too much because we never knew exactly what we were paying for. But we got really focused on we're going to help you put on-farm storage, and we require a 3,000-gallon tank or bigger. And for 3 years, we'll give you $30 a ton direct cut check to you on farm drops. So how Kurt, Shannon, and Nate enter your orders, even if you were to touch it, you can enter that order. We can keep track of your tonnage. But basically, in a sense, we can pay for a 3,000-gallon tank and a 12-ton delivery for 3 years. I can't stress enough that on-farm storage controls your destiny. And that helps us build our tonnage up. We have guys that we used to take 6-ton drops. We don't want to come see you 8 times a year. I like to see you twice a year. We want to invest in your storage on your farm. We have to fill our trucks to come to these areas. We have baffled trailers, but nothing moves faster than a straight truck. So look at our tank rebate program. $30 a ton for 3 years. 3,000 gallons or bigger. Take advantage of it.
So yeah, we got that. We also, most of you will try a tote or two the first year, and then we keep moving up through the process of this thing. So we have got ability. So again, thank you. And we can sit here and talk all day, but you can see we have got a cone back there. That's 100% of the Boost product going through a spray nozzle. That's no water. That's not diluted. That's 100%. And make sure that you get that and you sit on there. If you notice, you see all these for angry corns and stuff like that. The back of that shirt, we reach happy stress-free corn. Okay, that's happy stress-free. So anybody gives you a hard part-time on it. That's a happy stress-free corn. So thank you very much for all coming. Thank you.